What's good? It's your boy DJ Pryce Miyagi. I just want to say thank you to everyone who supported the podcast so far. We doing numbers and we want to continue to go up, but we need your support. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell so that you're in tune every time we drop a new podcast episode. Listen, I ain't gonna hold y'all up. Thank you again for your support. Now let's get into another Can We Talk episode. Salute. What's good, my peoples? What's good? It's your boy, DJ Pryce Miyagi, and we back with another one. Oh yeah, we back with another one. And we doing good right now. We on a good run right now with this Can We Talk podcast, and we gonna keep it moving. We gonna keep doing what we doing, man. It's official. We in the building, and I want to say thank you to everyone who's been supporting the podcast thus far. Man, we've been doing great numbers, man. They still going up, man. They always going up every episode. Y'all showing me a lot of love, man. And I got some big announcements coming soon about the podcast, man. Somebody reached out to us, man. And so we working on something real big right now. So y'all stay tuned for that. But let's get into the podcast today, man. We got a special guest in the building, man. Definitely a Portland legend in the building, hands down. Welcome to the show, Joe Bean Keller. What's good? How you doing?
Good? How you doing, fam?
It's good to be here with you, baby. Blessed. How you feeling?
I'm blessed. Faith and patience, blessed to be here.
Absolutely. So before we get into a conversation today, I've been talking to everybody, man, ask them how they feel about the vaccine. Is it something that you participating in or you're not participating in? Or?
And I've had my shots since early March.
Okay, talk about it.
I'm good to go, basically, and going to be throwing a two-shot party.
Okay.
And it's two-shot party. If you got your 2 shots, you can come. If you ain't got your 2 shots, you can't come.
You can't come. The two-shot party. I like that. Two-shot party.
Right.
That's good. I had my first one. I got my first one last month. I'm due for my second one here on the 20th of next month. So I'm excited about it. The first one had me a little fatigued. I heard that second one kind of put you down. I'm doing the Maduro one, I believe is how you say it.
Right.
Which one did you end up doing?
Moderna.
You did one too, yeah. How did the second one do for you?
Well, I never had a problem on either of them. You know, just had a sore shoulder, basically. That was all it, you know. But like I say, everybody's different. My mom, she had a reaction where she was just fatigued, basically, after the second shot, you know. And I even had a friend that had his second shot recently, and it kind of took him to a fatigue stage, basically. Right. But once he got back his energy back, he's kind of felt even better since. But like I explained to him, I say sometimes that lets you know that it is affecting your system.
That's a fact.
Something is changing.
Right.
So if you don't, you know, if it don't change, then why are you taking it? So that's a fact. That's a good thing, actually.
Yeah, I'm nervous about the second one. I've heard the same thing the first one gave me some fatigue as well. I was a little fatigued, a little tired, but then, like I say, after like a day or so, I was good. Sore arm about a few days. But the second one, I keep hearing it put you down, but I'm ready for it.
You just got to like I say, you just got to push past it, basically.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
So a lot of it is still mental and so forth, you know, because sometimes we'll feel fatigued from something else,
right?
And they'll put it to that, and then say, okay, well, this is making me feel like this, you know, and so to make you stay down longer, opposed to saying, let me just put myself up off my bootstraps and keep my ass moving.
Right, facts, you know? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, I'm excited about it. I'm gonna get it, man. You know, I tell about people, you know, do what you feels best. Always do your research before you do anything, of course. But you know, like I said, we've been putting vaccines in our bodies for a long time. I mean, you couldn't even get to school without a vaccine at some point.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I tell people all the time, we put things worse in our body than vaccine anyway. So, you know, like I say, it's about being safe. And I'm definitely doing a party too. You got to have your vaccine card on deck.
That's right. Well, that's, you know, and a lot of things are changing to that direction, actually, because the cruise lines are getting ready to start going back out. And you have to show your card in order to get on the cruise. Right. And airlines are going to start doing that similar thing. So people don't seem to realize that that's going to be a part of the norm itself. And people are going to be separated. It's like, I think like some of the sports games that are going on right now. You got to have your card to go into.
They even said they got a section for just fully vaccinated people. That's
right.
crazy.
And they can sit there and just enjoy themselves.
Absolutely.
And you can't do the same thing they do.
Yep.
You know.
And I did see something too online. I guess somebody was doing fake vaccine cards, but it was like laminated or something like that,
right.
and it was crazy. So I'm sure I think they're gonna probably end up coming down the pipeline down the road, where you're gonna either be scanned, you know what I'm saying, or in the system to show that you got the vaccine, not just showing the card.
Right.
But yeah, it's crazy, man. So like I said, people who may be watching this and thinking about the vaccine, definitely do what's best for you. But definitely, if you don't stay masked up, kind of isolate yourself from people, because got to stay masked up.
Got to stay masked
up. Absolutely.
Because if you don't, it's for your benefit and others, and because the fact that most people go around their family. So if you're around people that may have have the germ, and you're not masked up and you get it, excuse me, and then you go around your family, your parents and your kids, then you're subject to giving it to them.
Absolutely.
So it's just a thing of being safe. I mean, it's not really, some people think it's political. Some people, have all these different, things about it. But it's the bottom line, it's about being safe.
Absolutely. It really is, and we got to stay safe, man, just to protect our loved ones and ourselves.
And health first.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, man, well, moving forward here, man, so I like to start my podcast off to get to know everybody on the podcast that do not know. Y'all know you, but a lot of people don't know you. So I kind of want to, and a lot of times this is based on Portland legends and Portland figures in my city. You're from the city, but I just want to start from the beginning. Were you born and raised here? Did your parents migrate here? Did you migrate here? Like, how did you get to Portland? What part of Portland did you grow up in?
Born and raised here. Went to Boise Elementary School.
Okay.
Born in 1956.
Okay.
64 years old right now.
Hello.
Looking good too. Hey.
Looking real good, huh? Absolutely.
Still in the gym. But yeah, I went to Boise Grade School, grew up on Cook Street.
Okay.
That's when I was little, we lived on Failing at Wilmson Failing for many years, for about 5 to 6 years. Mm-hmm. And then once I started grade school, we moved over on Cook Street. And straight walk down it was a Union and Cook basically. Mm-hmm. Straight walk down the street down to Boise Grade School. All the kids. That was back in the days when kids used to play kickball,
right?
Hide and go seek out there. Football in the streets.
Yeah.
The street lights was your best friend. You used to fight with your. But then at the end of the fight, y'all would make up and so forth, and you'd be all right. Those were the good days. Those were the days that you made happen.
Absolutely. So kind of tell me, how was Portland back there? Like growing, so you was born in, you said 54?
56.
56. So born in 56, so what you grew up in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, probably like around your hiatus time, like when you was young and coming up.
Well, no, actually, my hiatus was in the 60s, because I've been an entrepreneur since I was 7 years old.
Oh, well, talk about it then.
Right. You see, most people don't even know my story. I've worked at my first job, actually, I created, because when we used to go out to my grandmother's house out in Southeast, we used to always go down 82nd Street, and there was this place that we had stopped at one day, and they sold these little donuts, a little shack, little thing. It wasn't even a house or anything like that. It was just like a little shed, basically, that these people sold donuts out of. And so I got some of them donuts, and one day I just got an idea. I just thought about it, because I'm a thinker. I said, I'm going to get me some donuts, and I'm going to get me some clients. I'm going to sell donuts to senior citizens, and that's what I did on Saturday and Sunday mornings. Because Friday night I would go and get the donuts. My mom would take me out to go get the donuts. I'd get them little white bags and stuff. I'd come home, I'd bag them all up, and I created a client list every Saturday and Sunday, and I'd put a basket in front of my bike, and I would take them donuts, because they would always have coffee, but they never had fresh donuts.
Oh, so you come with the donuts. You the donut man.
I'm the donut man, right. You see what I'm saying? So, and that was at 7 years old. And then at the same time, I was back on Union and Cook, Union Street, Union and Fremont, and Union and Ivy's, next block over. See, there used to be five gas stations right there. There was a 76 on the corner of, right across from where McDonald's used to be, old what's it called, Winkies? What was that store?
Quickies.
Quickies.
Was it Quick? No, with a K though. I remember that. Yeah, the little brick building right there.
Because that was a former McDonald's, basically, when they had the golden arches and so forth.
Right.
But across from there,
that's on now it's MLK and Fremont.
Union and Fremont. There was a 76 gas station there. Then right across the street from there, or catty corner from the old McDonald's, there was a Richfield a golf gas station. On the other side of of that, on Ivy Street, there was a Richfield gas station. Then down the street, there was a Chevron gas station as well, too. So I actually worked at all of those gas stations.
Oh, wow.
Gas was 27 cents a gallon.
27 cents a gallon.
Myself and Ricky Ray Rankin, my partner Ricky Ray Rankin, lived around the corner from me, and so God rest his soul. But we used to work at all the gas stations. Everybody just loved us. You know, I worked at the car lot across the street, and so starting from 7 all the way until, I've always just been an entrepreneur because everybody just loved Joe Bean.
Absolutely, and they still do.
and so it just kind of created, you know, to where I am now, basically, and I'm still an entrepreneur, and still making things happen. I mean, you know, everything that I learned, I've been blessed with it. I got to say that, you know, because God has given me He has totally given me some gifts.
Absolutely.
Because I don't read about it, I don't study it, I don't even do a lot of reading because I got bad eyes.
Right.
So everything that comes to me is a natural because me and God talk on a regular basis. You know, as I'm doing my remodeling and stuff now, I see it, I look at it, He tells me what to do, and I go and I make it happen. And
that's dope. That's dope. So tell me about what high school did you go to?
Washington High School.
Washington High School. Now, I'm not familiar with Washington. Where was that at?
Washington was on 14th and Start.
Okay,
It turned to Washington Monroe, and now it's
what are you talking about now?
What is it? It's a concert place now. They have concerts there. Oh, what is the name of that? It'll come to me.
Yeah, I remember Monroe because my kid's mother went there because, like I said, I was a high school dad. So she ended up going to Monroe to finish her high school years. And at that time, I had dropped off, so I was working. And I had a baby on the way. But yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Me, I went to Grant, of course. I'm a general all day long.
Washington Colonials.
Absolutely. You know? So I know that you did music. How'd you get into music?
I started playing saxophone when I think it was 8 years old.
Okay.
Like that in school. Because back then, they had band. Band was a part of the curriculum itself, basically, when you was in grade school.
Absolutely.
Band, shop, you know, home economics. You know, that's why some of these girls can cook now because they didn't go through no home economics training. So I'm just saying, you know.
That's a fact. That's a fact. You talking the truth right now.
Right. And that's how you learn, you know. So that's how we kind of learn. So it's kind of like the things that you do in life or the things that you learn. You know, and stuff. And so, but if you're not being taught these types of things, you don't kind of put them inside your head until, you know, especially if you're not taught as a young person.
That's true.
You know, and even though, you know, because even men back then did home ec.
That's true.
Or boys, you would say, you know, and some people say, oh, why a boy in home ec? That's why brothers can cook now and brothers are chefs right now.
Absolutely.
Because of the fact they went to home ec and learned what it takes in order to sustain, you know, and that's what a real father's supposed to do. It's supposed to be able to cook for us, you know. So
that's a fact.
Home things are not just for, you know, women.
That's true.
You know, so.
That's true. I definitely know how to cook thanks to my mom. You know, she had me in that kitchen.
So, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? We didn't have home economics. They called it, we had home ec, but it was a little different. They didn't teach us really how to cook. Home ec was at home.
Home ec, right?
You know, but they did have those programs. Like I remember having video production in school. Workshop. They had the mechanic program where you can learn how to work on cars. They taught you how to work with your hands a lot in high school. You know, because some people didn't go to college, and sometimes a trade is a route for some people. So you know, you can discover that in high school. You know, by going to auto class and then learn like I'm pretty good with my hands. Maybe this is the way I want to go. You know, so I really don't understand why they took those programs out. Maybe it was a money thing, but those programs used to be really crucial. Well, I say crucial now to have, but back then it was definitely conducive to our learning for sure.
Well, I think what happened was that as time evolved and those that kind of design which way the world is going, they kind of close off certain things because they want to put other things in front.
Yeah.
You see, because they knew the computer era was coming. They knew the technology. So they knew the things that were going to be important to them later, you know. So even when it came to school and everything else, they wanted people to learn particular things, get away from all of the hands-on things, learn something that you can get a job so that you can work for us.
Right.
You see, opposed to giving you skills, like I say, home ec made chefs.
Right.
You know, home shop class made contractors like me.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It gave you skills so forth.
Right.
But that gave you independence as well, too. You see, folks don't want you to have independence. So if they take away all of the things that teach you those things, and then you have to rely on us, you see,
That's true. And so just now since we're in there, I want to kind of stay in this pocket for a second. So like, how was the climate of Portland back then, especially like now? We deal with a lot of, racial tension. We're dealing with a lot of systemic racism that's always been there, but it's kind of now on the forefront. So how was it at that time when you were coming up?
Well, back then, we didn't really see it the same because of the fact that we were a community. And so when we talked about community, we were a community. There was a community of people. You knew your neighbors, you knew everybody. The white folks that did come into the neighborhood or moved in the neighborhood, they became your friend,
right?
Because they wanted to make sure that they were, a part of what was going on and stuff. And so it's just recently, as the gentrification and all of these other things started really taking place, is when racism is starting to be more visible. Because it's kind of like, as a group, we moved as a group. Right. So couldn't nobody tell us nothing. But once they started breaking people apart, and putting in little small pockets, those pockets were easy to shift and to make change, you see, and then they stopped communication. Because anytime you break away a system that has been working, it creates, a situation where the communication is not the same.
Right.
And so once people stop communicating and things like that, it left more room for other things to start coming in. And that's where we started seeing more racism, because it was kind of like we opened the door, we left space for them to come in to push us. And then once you get one to push, then the other ones feel, okay, now I can buck my chest up now a little bit, and I can act like this right here and so forth, because of the fact that I know that they ain't gonna do nothing about it.
Right, that's true.
You see,
that's true. And like, so for me, like when I grew up in Portland, I grew up in Northeast Portland. That's where I'm from, born and raised. I grew up most of my years in the Woodlawn district. It's crazy because when coming up, like being in North Portland, felt like home. You seen everybody. That's kind of your vicinity where you traveled. Right. If you went like a distance, it was to the north. Where you live Northeast, it seemed like that bus ride took you about 3 hours.
Right. Right.
So going to the north, from Northeast, and now it's the numbers. Anything like really past like Gateway to me is like the numbers, and that community is a little spread out. So when you were coming up, was it the same? Was it still like Portland? I mean, I know nobody was going to Gresham at that time, but was it like you guys in one area like the north, or was you guys already in Northeast? Because I know that at some point we migrated into Northeast from the north side. Yeah,
well, we grew up in the northeast side basically, and the community expanded basically from 33rd all the way into St. John's, and that was all pretty much one community in a sense. So there wasn't really that separation in a sense of people would say, well, I'm going to St. John's, or, but it wasn't really separated like it is now as far as the community itself, because people traveled. I mean, if there was a party at the Tamaracks, you would just roll to the Tamaracks. If there's a party on Williams Emerson, because that's where the big parties used to be back in the days, folks from out there would just come, So if there was a concert at the Coliseum, because James Brown used to come to the Coliseum for 99 cents.
So everybody in their 99 cents?
99 cents. You get a dollar, get a penny back. But then that's when you can buy a penny candy for a penny.
That's
so that
crazy.
Penny made a difference.
That penny made a difference,
right, because that was a piece of candy right there. Right. That was real penny candy. Not that you paid 10 cents, 15, 25 cents for it now. But that's what created community itself, because there were so many things for people to do. There were so many avenues. And, if you went up and down Williams Avenue, you had black restaurants, barbershops, shoe shine stands, stores. There was a striving community of people. You go up MLK, had nightclubs, all up and down, bars up and down from Lombard to Broadway.
So there's a lot of black-owned businesses. And that's what I kind of remember as being young, seeing some of that, but I'm sure not as much as you've seen. It seemed like it thrived more then than it does now as far as black businesses.
I mean, if you were to, I would look at, there were probably 60% more black businesses then than there are now. But what happened was that white people think on a 20-year plan.
Right.
See, and I used to tell people that. I say, because I was always around white people and stuff, and I worked for the city back then and stuff, and so I kind of always listened to how people kind of think. And so they had a plan and design because we weren't supposed to be in that neighborhood anyway.
Right.
Because we were forced there from the Vanport flood. Because when Vanport flooded, and which y'all that don't know, Vanport, Delta Park area, all down in that area, down there basically, that was a striving community, it was a city of its own, its own police department, black folks basically had their, that's where because when people migrated to Oregon, basically, they came for the shipyard work and the railroad work, basically. That's because it was good jobs here. And so they had a black hotel downtown.
Oh wow!
There black porters. They were part of the because when they got off, because the hotel was actually across the street from the train station. And because when they would get off the train, basically, because there were a lot of black porters back then, they would just be able to go walk across the street and go to their rooms.
Oh, that's dope.
Then you had like Scotty's Barbecue. You go. There were so many, Lydios. They had black cleaners. People on, black people on cleaners. Anything that you wanted, you can find it black back then. But then, like I say, when the 20-year plan came, when white folks knew that it was kind of like the rooster needed to get back to the hen house, because when Vanport flooded, this is how the story really goes. Is like when Vanport flooded, basically, black people had nowhere to go but up. They weren't. So bottom line is, black folks weren't supposed to come up the hill up Columbia to get to the top of the hill to Lombard.
Oh wow!
That wasn't right.
So that's where the cutoff part was Lombard?
Right.
I did not know that.
It was like say they pretty much didn't have to come out of Vanport
because everything was already there.
Everything was already there.
They made sure of that. So
they made sure of that. So
no reason to come up this way.
Right. Only time you had to come that way is if you were going to the train station or something like that.
Okay.
So you really had no reason. There was nothing that you needed. Because back then, there was still black, white onlys, black, and so forth. There was still segregation because Oregon was one of the last states to basically, ban segregation.
Okay, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so that's why there's so much racism here, because it had been hidden for so long, But then, like I said, what happened was that when the flood happened, there was nowhere else for them to go but up the hill. And so once they started migrating into the Northeast community, white folks started leaving. Then that's when, you wouldn't find, they was going to Beaverton, Gresham, and so forth, because that was the white haven back then. But the white man, he realized after a while, we've been going too long, and Northeast community is the prime property. We need to get back home, because why are we an hour from the airport?
Right.
Why are we so far from downtown? Why you see what I'm saying?
Don't make sense to them.
It's like, wait a minute.
Right.
And a lot of them didn't sell their property. They rented it out and leased it out. But then they came back to reclaim.
Right.
You see, so basically the rooster has returned to the hen house. And so that's what created the gentrification, the whole process itself. And it's taken place in other neighborhoods as well. It's just like down in Houston, the 3rd, 4th wards, all of those and so forth. All, the roosters coming in there too, because of the fact that if you go on the other side, there's downtown's right over there.
That's a fact.
So they understand the importance of convenience.
Yep.
Now black people are moving out to Gresham, and they force them out there because now. But you couldn't before. You couldn't get out there. They wouldn't let you out there.
There was no way out there until they made that max.
Until that max, right?
And that was probably part of the 20-year plan. We got to have some transportation to get them out there.
We got to get out there. We got to create things, all the things that so that they easy. Look, because we got to get them out there.
Got to get them out there.
We got to
make it easy and affordable.
Right, and then this is how they did the businesses. And I explained this to people, and people thought that I was too young to be saying what I was saying, because they're like, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, okay, I'll keep telling you, these white folks is 20 years here. They put the dividers in the streets on MLK, Union Avenue then. When they put the dividers in the streets, they took the parking away. And see, those businesses, their parking was on the street.
Oh, okay.
You see, they didn't have parking lots. You see, so they was on the street. So that's what they were banking on. So when they put the dividers in there, they knew that these businesses weren't going to be able to be able to survive, basically, because of the fact that they no parking for them.
Dirty dogs.
Right. But see, this is how dirty they are, though. This is how dirty they are. the same street. See, they never moved those dividers. They're still in the street. What they did back then, they made the lanes wider so that it looked like you couldn't park.
Right.
But see, when the rooster came home, you see they parking on Union Avenue on MLK now, right?
Right. Up and down Williams.
Right. They moved those lanes back in.
Yep. That's a fact.
Lane for parking now. See, they could have did that then.
Yeah.
It wasn't, but that was a strategic move on their part to make those lanes wide enough to where a car can't park there. Right. Say, well, there's no parking on Union Avenue. No parking on Union Avenue anymore.
They had a whole plan.
So that was a plan, but that was a part of the 20-year plan. See, we think about tomorrow, the next day, but we got to start thinking that same way that they do.
Absolutely, because even then, and I say this too, like at the time when I was coming up in Northeast, you go up down Williams, Vancouver, a lot of things was like all those new restaurants, all that stuff was like boarded up buildings. You walking up Williams, you had Craigos there, you had the House of Sounds right there. Then if you go down Albina, you know how that was. That was at one point like crack alley at one point.
Right.
Around when I was coming up.
Yep.
And at that time, if we would have had that vision, everybody who was getting money in the street should have been buying that stuff up for cheap. I would have thought, if you think now you look in hindsight, like we should have been buying that stuff up.
Right? Yeah. And that was the thing and stuff, and they knew that because, like I said, there were a lot of black businesses, bars and stuff on Albina as well too.
Right.
During that time, and this same thing, Alberta Street, all the way from MLK going down to 28th Street, there was black businesses that were going up and down there, but then. Once that whole gentrification thing, the whole, 20-year plan process started, they kept trying to figure out ways to keep black people from being supportive, And then all of a sudden, they even changed the parking on Alberta Street, Yeah. They started recreate, so they recreate things and they design it for failure.
Right.
You see, and then it made it to a point because at first, Alberta Street was so bad, white people wouldn't even want to come up and down Alberta.
Right.
We ain't going down Alberta Street now. We ain't,
That's a fact. They want to come to Northeast. I remember being a kid, you see Northeast on the news all the time, like every time. So, I used to mess with this girl. She's living in Beaverton. Her mom used to tell her all the time, I don't want you going to see him in Northeast. It's dangerous over there. I was like, it's not dangerous.
It's not dangerous, right.
It's not dangerous. Y'all see a couple incidents on it. I get it, but trust me, you come with me, you'll know it ain't dangerous.
But what it is that's what they would promote. The media, so that was a part of the media's plan. Basically, let's promote the negative things and so forth, and so it keeps that vision. And see, but then we gotta be careful too, and I gotta say this: it's not only white folks that kept us back; there were black people as well too.
I agree,
and I say this because when I was talking about Alberta Street, because I was a part of this group years ago. That was a part of the Alberta Street Development Plan. And that's when it was derelict buildings and so forth. And they used to have these 7:00 meetings that that people would go to and sit down and kind of hash out, conversation about what needs to be done, what we could do, and then they created, they were creating this business. It was Owami, basically. That's when Owami first started, we got into business. And Owami was basically an incubator program for black businesses to make sure that black and minority businesses were to get started and to get placement and stuff.
Right.
So they were, and the owner, the director and so forth, he knew how to get the funding and all that kind of stuff, because all there was, grant money, there was monies available out there for this and stuff. So like say Alberta Street was a key. So initially they were talking about how, sweat, are you familiar with sweat equity? So that's what one of the things that was a part of, because all these buildings were dilapidated and so forth.
Right.
So sweat equity was going to be a part of their plan. You go up there, you go in, you help, do the rebuild and so forth, and that cuts your costs down, et cetera, and so forth. So one meeting we had, there was a mock-up of what Alberta was going to look like, how they had, they had put it down, and it's like it's probably as big as your table right here, and it just, it was a mock basically of what the plan was. And so it was interesting. The brother that was in charge of it, he was married to a white woman. See, so sometimes we got to be careful when we say minority businesses, because when women come to be a part of that minority status, see, then it kind of shifts, and then all of a sudden, white women are considered minority. Yeah, so like say, he went and bought the building on Williams and Skidmore. It was old AYOS school. Mm-hmm. Used to be the old AYOS. It's
like that, like light blue building right there, I believe.
Right.
Yeah. The parking lot.
And so what he did was, after all of these people had worked on, getting their funding for their business and everything else, like say, with the ideal that Alberta Street was the corridor, and Alberta Street is storefronts basically, so somebody can always be visually available to be seen if you're at a storefront. Mm-hmm. He took all those businesses and incubated them inside of that closed building.
Yep.
And so you had Arnold Petrie, he was a black painter, you had chefs, you had different kind of, businesses, but they were all incubated inside that building. Did not even put a sign outside to let people know that these businesses were in there. You see?
That makes sense. I remember going in there, because I go in there, it used to be a little food place in there when I was going in there, and the building be pretty empty, the parking lot not as packed, but you're right. There's on the outside. There was nothing on the outside of it. All the entrances are inside the building. You got to walk in that door, and then you walk around.
Yeah. You got to see. Right.
Yeah, that's crazy. I didn't pay attention. That's crazy.
But then, like say, all those businesses end up failing. Mm-hmm. All those businesses end up failing because of the fact that nobody knew where they were or who they were. But see, and then this is the sad part. That same project was sold to the white people. See, that's what the brother did. The brother took and sold that project, the same project that we looked at, to the white people.
Oh, wow.
That same funding went to those white people. See, you had all those, because he incubated all those people, and, and they're paying. See, the thing was that, like say, he's the one that helped them get the funding.
Right.
So they're kind of like having to follow him. Mm-hmm. And I saw the sign a while back, and I tried to tell a couple people, and people still the same thing to me about that 20-year thing.
Right.
And you always just be tripping, so forth.
Right.
I'll be paying a fucking attention.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
I see.
Right, I see. You ain't finna get me,
Right.
And see, when I started years ago, I was a part of an incubator program at PCC in the building that was next to the gymnasium, and Sam was, so I knew what he was doing because I was a part of his group then, but that was from a different perspective, because that's what it was understood to be, this incubator business program, So I accepted it then, but so I see what you're doing.
Right.
You're doing the same thing that you was doing back then to these people now, but you're risking their livelihood. Because these people had some serious businesses that they were trying to achieve. And if they had that storefront, access, if somebody's riding down the street, they can see Arnold Petrie's, they can see such and such as they can see that. They can, and you didn't even have the audacity to even get a billboard out there to say that, these people are here after all that money that you've got from the city, and that they're still paying you to rent that building. They helped you buy that building. They bought that building for you. And the thing was that he had got a building on 11th in Alberta. It used to be an old phone company on Alberta and 11th in Alberta.
Okay.
That was on, well, actually the building part was on 12th and the parking lot was on 11th there. It was an old phone company. They donated that building to the program for $1. He received that building for $1.
Oh, wow.
See, so the brother had game. Brother was smart, you know.
It sounded like he knew what he was doing.
The brother knew what he was doing.
Right.
But he was doing it off of others.
Right.
You see? Because, like I say, he wasn't married to a white woman.
Right.
So they have a different perspective of, how they game going. And, so there's a few, and going back to what I was saying, there are a few black white people out there that still try to keep black people down.
Right.
That's the bottom line to this story, is that there are still some, even though the white man may be, doing some things, we have to be careful, because there are still some of us that are the same color as we are, that are still looking to make sure.
Self-sabotage us,
Right.
So let me ask you this here, Uncle Joe. So now I want to talk about back then, as far as, because now we would say there's really no black leadership in Portland, right?
Right.
A lot of people say that. And I tend to think that way as well. Now, as you were coming up, how was the black leadership at that time compared to this time? And if there was some type of black leadership, what do you think that the downfall was to end that black leadership? Because we definitely don't have any now.
There was great black leadership back then. You know, Ron Herndon, Halim. I mean, there was the Black United Front. You know, and that's what it stood for, the Black United Front. I was a part of that. I mean, you know, so they were real community leaders back then that stood for something. They were a voice that people would listen to, you know, that you can call on, and they would be there and deal with issues that were taking place,
right?
You know, and weren't afraid to go in and take charge or go in and call somebody, make somebody be accountable,
right?
You see, but now we have a bunch of self-appointed leaders.
I agree.
Want to be leaders. You see what I'm saying? But you're not connecting with anybody. So how are you leading if you're not bringing people together?
Right.
Leaders bring people together. Leaders, you know, they bring people from other parts together. They make sure that people know the information that is disseminated out to everybody. You know, that's what real leaders do. But, you know, we have leaders now that are just leaders of little groups of people and so forth, and think that they're, you know, because I was watching a news thing, and see, in the media will do that as well too, because I was watching a news thing, and they were saying they were talking to some black leaders and so forth. So I said, let me catch this news. I want to see who these black leaders are. And I seen these couple of people come on. I'm like, what the hell are you?
Yeah, I know. I think I seen that same thing. I said, who are these?
Who are you?
Right.
You're talking about being a leader,
right?
Where's your voice at? I don't even know you,
right? Right.
Joe and Keller don't know you. Then
that's true. Everybody knows Joe and Keller,
right? So I mean, I don't know where you get your leadership from, right. But I say that self-appointed stuff. And just because you do a march or you go out there, you know, because the loudest voice is not the most important voice. It's the voice that gets results.
True.
See, that's where real leadership comes from. So
now one would say, because you got some of the young guys out here are trying to fill in those voids. A couple guys in the city that are really trying to. But I think the disconnect is at the old and the new and how to bridge that gap. I don't think there's no bridge there. And it seems like from the outside looking in, it seems like the older guys don't want to really pass the torch to the younger guys. I don't know why that is. But when you got young guys that are on fire that can help keep this thing moving, you would think they would sit down with them, work with them, and make it happen. Why do you think that doesn't happen?
Well, because the bottom line is that they have to ask, because nobody's asked me.
Okay, true.
You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I got the juice.
Talk about it.
And so if nobody calls me, then I know you ain't really reaching out.
Right.
You know, you're reaching out to a few, you know, or someone, but you're not, you know, and that's the key, you know, because I put a post up. How do you bridge a generation gap? You see what I'm saying? How do you bridge a generation gap?
I think that's the key question we all need to know, because there is a generation gap here, and you know, like I say, a lot of guys are aging, you know, and you got a lot of young guys who are ready to pick up where they left off and take it to the next level. But somehow, some way, that there's a disconnect there, and
because what it is, I think a lot of it is that if we work from the past that we know and not the past that has been known, then we lose a lot. Because see, a lot of young people now are working from the past that they know. Right.
It makes sense.
You see, so you have to do research. You got to go, like I say, go back and talk. You got to be willing to go talk. You got to go and ask that older, person to share that knowledge and so forth.
That's true.
So if you don't, so otherwise, only information that you know is from your past.
Right.
See, and so that's the key right there, and that's how you bridge the gap itself, is because young people have to be willing to listen and want to learn, and at the same time, older people will have to be able to give it and then still want to learn as well too, because learning is not learning is always.
Right.
So it's kind of like being able to share information.
Right.
See, and just talking, just like me and you talking now.
Absolutely.
Just, because I got so many stories. People don't know the stories that I got. Hey, man, we could talk for hours.
That's one of the reasons I got you on the podcast. Because one, Unc, I know you're a prominent person in this community. You know a lot about the community. You've been out in the community, and that's kind of want to get you on the show so we could talk about a lot of this stuff. Now, I will, just to go back to what we're talking about here, I think when it comes to, the older leaders to the younger leaders, it's a pride thing. I think sometimes the younger guys feel that the older guys should just be, open book. Here, give me everything I need. I see that you're working, and I'm going to call you and reach out to you. And then the young guys feel like, well, you see me moving. How come you not coming to me and saying nothing to me? And a lot of times there's no, hey, let me call. But then sometimes there are, I call and I don't get any results. So now I feel away. But that's maybe one person you call. Did you call another person? Did you call another person and another person? Somebody's going to come through because we have more than one leader. You know what I'm saying? So, I think it's just a pride thing a lot of times. And sometimes we just got to, stay trying to reach out. And I think it goes both ways. I think the older generations too, when they see these young guys out here moving and trying to push it forward, hey, I see what you're doing. Let's sit down and talk too. I think, that's a big thing. I would say definitely the pride, the pride.
Yes. And I would say that's true too, because pride is basically something that when you build something within yourself that you kind of want to keep it personal in a sense, but then you want to share it, but it's kind of hard to, because it's like, then you think about all of the things that you went through to get it, so, and if I just give it away, then it's like, where's their struggle going to come from? Where's their, are they going to be able to go through what I had to go through? If people can just come together, and we can just talk and just share stuff, willing to have those, just open conversations and not take, because sometimes people get so serious in conversations because they always want to try to get their point across.
That's true.
And sometimes you don't necessarily have to get your point across. Sometimes you may need to listen and then you get your point answered.
That's true.
See?
Well, I'm hoping that one day, the old and the new can sit down, come together, man, and figure this thing out, because we do need some black leadership in this city that's unified and that's really working for the people. I think that's something we need. But I do want to fast forward a little bit and kind of go into, today's climate and what we're dealing with. Of course, you've seen we had a lot of protests down here, especially after the George Floyd situation there in Minnesota. We seen a lot of protesting down here. It seemed like it woke up everybody. I mean, we've seen it before, but I don't think to this magnitude. It's kind of on a bigger scale now. And like you say, things are recycling. Now, I know that you've dealt with a situation where your son was killed by the police about 20-something years ago, I believe.
25 years ago.
Yeah. I kind of want you to kind of tell that story, man, and how that happened, because you've been a victim of that. And that's something that was big in our city as well. Before the George Floyds and Breonna Taylors, we had Deontae Keller. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit.
Well, like I said, my son Deontae J. Keller was shot in the back by Portland police officer Terry Kruger on February 28th, 1996. It was, and he jumped out the car and took off running. Unbeknownst to him, officer shot him in the back. Basically, he didn't have any driver's license, and the real reason why he jumped out the car, and I don't mind telling anybody, because he had 1/10 of a gram of cocaine in his underwear, basically, and he knew by not having a driver's license, he would automatically go to jail, and if he go to jail, they're going to automatically do a strip search, and a strip search automatically means that's the case right there itself. And so even though it was like a dime bag, because back then, fellas were just getting their little hustle on, basically. So whatnot, he didn't use no drugs, he didn't smoke weed, he didn't do, or anything like that. But he was just trying to get a hustle on,
Give him a little change in his pocket, like most do. I mean, opportunities that are in the hood. That's what it was.
That was all, right, because he was on his own, trying to make it, because he was staying at my house with me and so forth, But as a young man, he wanted to do his thing, and you grown. Because like I said, I've been on my own since I was 16, so I understand it, when you want to try to make your ways. And I've done, ain't like I've done everything right. But God just watched over me to keep, But then, like I say, in Deontae's situation, it was a little different because, like I say, he was murdered, And they left him, they handcuffed him, they left him in the backyard for almost 2 hours, basically, before they let the medical come in. You know, and y'all can go to see the videos called Before There Was Trayvon. Just go to YouTube, Before There Was Trayvon, pull up the video, and they tell you the whole story about the murder of Deontae Keller, along with story. It mentions Kendra James,
yeah,
and all the others that have been murdered by police. So before there was Trayvon, there were so many murders that's going on, and so that's why now I can, I hear about people, and I was down protesting one time. I mean, I spoke at a rally. I was asked to speak at one of the rallies when it first started, but then it started to get a little, off track because of the fact that then people's personal agendas started coming into the whole process itself.
Right.
So I kind of stayed away because my focus is still on the local people that were murdered. Yes, it's nice, that everybody wants to get on the bandwagon of, but if we don't stop the local things that are taking place here, and if we don't focus on the local things, it's not going to change. See, people aren't in other states talking about Deontae Keller or Kendra James or, Jahar Perez or anything. They're not marching. You see, they're not marching for,
Right.
So, but we're so focused on wanting to march, because it's something national for the No, but let's get back home.
Get back home, right?
Let's get back home because this is what's more serious itself, Like I said, it's been 25 years since my son was murdered by the police, but see, what people don't understand, like say, faith and patience. If you have faith and patience, things come back around when it's in God's time. Because justice is a thing that basically has no time frame itself, But there will be justice for Deontae because, see, 25 years later, the officer that murdered my son just recently got fired.
Okay.
After the Department of Justice investigation because in relation to the untold story that I have out too. You can always go to the website Deontae J. Keller as well too, and you'll see the untold story, the conspiracy, the murder, and the cover-up of Deontae J. Keller of my son, basically. And that was one of the things that got him fired as well too, because he was out there in West Lynn with the whole Michael Fesser situation and stuff. And see, it was kind of like an officer, the good old boys trying to keep good old boys in the mix itself. Right. And see, the officer, he should have retired and stayed in retirement. You see, because when he left the Portland Police Bureau, he should have stayed there, but he wanted to buck the system again. Want to go with your good old with cronies and so forth. They doing dirt and so forth. Absolutely. So they call you like, hey, Terry, you want to come over here, dude? You want to come and be right? Yeah, right. Like sure, dude. What the fucking hell? Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. We having fun over here, boy. We got niggers and everything else. We got stuff going on over here. Yeah, we can be corrupt over here. And that's what the good old boy network be doing. Right. So he came over there, but he pushed the envelope too far, and then this situation came up. And bam. So now I'm in the process of getting ready to bring him up on murder charges. Okay. See, because he's a civilian now.
That's true.
See, and there's no statute of limitation on murder. See?
So now it's time.
So he lost all of his protection. Once he got fired, he lost his pension, he lost his protection, he lost all that. See, all that happened at the end of the last year. And so he got 3 months severance pay. Basically, that's all he received. His 3 month severance pay ended in February 28th, at the end of February. See? So that's how justice will come back if you got faith and patience and timing. You see? And the cool part about this right here is that, see, like I said, when it came to us brothers and stuff, I was at this meeting at the police station, because, I still get called into community meetings and stuff, a little year and something ago before this, situation happened. And so there was the assistant police chief was there, pastors and so forth, some people that were part of, because there are some people that are part of this police group and so forth that I knew and stuff. And so I'm asking them, at the end, after the meeting and stuff, we were talking, and we got on Terry Kruger, basically, Right. And so I asked him, well, what happened to and that's when the assistant chief told me, say, well, he retired from the Portland Police, boom, boom, at a certain day and so forth. But he didn't tell me that he had got hired as the police chief in West Lynn. See, but not only he didn't tell me that, a couple of the brothers and pastors that I know didn't even say nothing. And I know that they knew.
Right.
And see, that's the thing right there.
Right.
Is that they knew and still didn't say nothing. You see, so everybody ain't your friend. So that's why when this walk I'm doing right now, I pretty much walk it alone in a lot of ways because I get a lot of business handled by myself.
Right.
Because everybody ain't to be trusted.
That's true.
You know, and so and some people don't want to really see justice.
Nope.
You know, but I am, you know, my foot's on the gas, my foot's on the pedal. It's going, you know, and it's staying there. I ain't got no brakes.
I hear that,
you
man.
know, and stuff. So
we gonna hope and pray that we get justice, man, for Deontae, man. I know that was a sad situation. I remember that when I was a kid when that happened. You know, and it's sad. Kendra James and like I said, a lot more. You know, rest in peace, and hopefully, you know, justice is across the board for everyone at some point. But moving forward here, I know that you did do the march in Washington.
Right.
Tell me about that experience. How was that?
Oh man, it was beautiful, man. It was an experience, actually. You know, and it was kind of a twofold for me. It was an experience to be able to be around thousands and thousands of black folks all there for the same cause in D.C. But what was most important to me is that I was able to raise over $20,000 and took 24 people.
Nice.
Families that lost loved ones, you know, to police violence. So they had the opportunity to fly and experience it as well too. Then I brought Minister J.W. Friday as well too, so that he'd be on the same plane with them because I had to fly in earlier, you know, to get there, to make some arrangements, and make sure everything was set up by the time everybody got to D.C. and stuff, the hotel and stuff. So, and then I even took a videographer as well too. Chris Fusel, he flew down as well too. So he videoed the whole thing. Nice. So actually I have the video experience. I have to share that with you and stuff as well too, of the march, the whole thing. I mean, it was an amazing experience, and so many people that went got so much out of it, but they all got something different from it. Right. Because each person's experience was different. For them to hear stories of someone else's loved one that they lost by the police violence on stage, and then they're talking to somebody next to them all of a sudden and realize that they've had an experience and stuff. And just like say, coming from Portland and being around Portland, where to be around that many black people at one time, I mean, it kind of made me feel like back when I was a kid. Right. You see what I'm saying? When I just look around and just see black people just everywhere, enjoying themselves, you know? And people were, sharing information and and it was a positive thing. I mean, and there's another march that's actually coming up again in August this year as well too. So I'll probably end up going back there again. I'm not sure if I'm going to take the same people or if I'm going to even do that and go that route. But I knew I had to do it for that particular because God had put it on my heart to say, you know. And the funny part about it is that I didn't get any support from the NAACP, none from the Urban League, SEI. I mean, brother, you didn't get a dime or a phone call, and from none of the major organizations and stuff. Right. So, but I raised this money myself. You know.
Why did you think that you didn't get any help from these organizations?
Well, I'm not quite sure, but it's, you know, but it's like Channel 6 was the only news station that would even run my stories. You know. Other stories, I sent the information to all of the other, you know, because I had a press person that took care of all my stuff and everything, you know, everything out to everybody, and none of them touched it, you know. But I think that it's this fear factor. There's still this fear factor because I'm Joe Bean Keller, and people know that I'm up to something, and so sometimes the media wants to stay away from me because they don't know what I might say. Right. You know? But then, like I said, but Coin 6, they've reached out to me just recently and stuff. And I told them that I'm putting some stuff together. And they're like, when you get it together, just let me know and we'll go ahead and start running what you need.
That's good.
You know, so it's people just, I don't, you know, I guess it comes to pride things because it's kind of like, oh, Joe Bean's taking all these people to my, well, how come I didn't think about that? Right. How come I didn't think about that? How come we didn't do that? You see? Right. That's that kind of thing right there.
And we live in that kind of city.
We live in that kind of city, right.
We live in that kind of city, and it's sad. Even though a lot of this goes on in a lot of cities across the country, but for us, because our black community is so small, you would think that, you know, the organizations that are in place that do have those kind of pockets, would get involved and help that, and it's a lot of things that I see. And I'm not saying they're not doing their part, maybe on the back end and other places they're doing it where we can't see, and that can be the case. But sometimes it's good to know and see and reach out to the community, the ones that maybe that one or two guy or that one lady in her crew, or, you see them and get behind them a little bit, help them and push them, and it doesn't take much, but you say it's a lot of pride thing. If I'm not part of it, or if I'm not ahead of it.
And because it wasn't about me or even for me.
Right.
See, that was the thing, is about, so if you think about, you got, Aaron Campbell's family, you got Kendra James' family, you got all these families that, that have lost loved ones to the police.
Yep.
And they want to go to Washington, D.C. to be a part of a march. Why wouldn't you get behind that movement? Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't you get behind, just on the strength of, that's a positive thing from a negative situation that it took place that these families have been going through. So just on the strength of thinking about the families, if you think from a, just a human nature,
right?
Automatically you would say, well, let me see, well, what can I do? Mm-hmm. At least let me send a phone call back and say, well, I can't do nothing. That's the least I can do, is fake your phone call or hit an email and say, well, we're not in a position right now to really do anything, But $50, $25 would have made a difference, because that would have been a meal or something for somebody, because I took them, they didn't have to pay for food, anything. I paid for the hotels, paid for the food, went to the restaurant, I paid the bill, because that trip was on,
That's
it was
dope.
about,
Yeah, that's good. I didn't know that. Yeah.
But I have to, thank Tressa Rayford, because Tressa Rayford, she had called me, she, when I told her about it and stuff, she's like, okay, she's like, you got PayPal? I'm like, yeah. She said, I gave my PayPal thing. And then she ended up putting $500 on there.
Nice.
So it's cool, So then we were talking, and a couple of days went by, and she said, she said, I got another $5,000 for you. At first I was kind of like, she said, oh, she said another 500. I'm thinking 500. And she just happened to slip her tongue. And then I look at my PayPal card, and they got another 5,000 in there.
Okay, well, she might have messed up extra. I don't know.
Yes, no, she meant to do that and stuff. And so then, because she's supporting the cause, because she understands what I'm doing,
Right.
And then I got people, this one white girl that was lived in. Her name was. Last name was Henderson. She had got contact with me on Facebook and stuff, because she had heard about it and stuff. And she had knew about the march and stuff, and she was going to go. She lives in Bend, Oregon. And she thought about it because she had talked, because she was, when she got contacted me, she was like, well, if the people from Oregon are going to be there, I want to kind of know where they are so we can kind of connect together and so forth, as an Oregon crew, So then she ended up calling me later, and she's like, I really sit down and I thought about it. I'm not going to go, she said. But the $900 I was going to spend, I'm sending it to you.
Nice.
So she sent me the $900, you see? And then, so I had people like that were coming through and stuff, and that's how I ended up raising the $20,000. And then I had a picnic for the families before we left.
Oh, nice.
And I were at a park, just so that because I wanted people to be able to come together before they, not just to meet at the airport, because these families had some rapport before you get there. They had something in common, but they had never been together before. And some of them may have knew, one or two of them, but they hadn't, group been together and stuff. And so it kind of broke the ice. People had a chance to share it, because everybody got a chance to get on the microphone and tell their stories about their loved one and so forth. So people were more familiar with, they're like, oh, wow, I didn't know what you knew, so forth. So by the time they got to the airport, they knew each other. Right. Because they were going to be traveling together anyway and stuff. And so that was the best way to break the ice. And so then as I'm at the park, I invited Teresa, Ken Body and, Loretta Smith and some other folks and so forth. So then I'm there. And so I'm sitting there talking to Teresa, me and her daughter and stuff. And then her daughter, she said, she said, did you give him that? And she's like, oh, I forgot. And so then she went in her pocket and gave me another check for $2,500.
Nice. Nice.
That's
what I'm talking about.
Right. And so that was love.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Right. And, Teresa, she's a go-getter when it comes to, being a community activist and stuff. And so I would consider her a leader in that way, because the fact that she creates that voice that's out there and is willing to be supportive of the causes that's really necessary. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing right there. And it's not like she has a bunch of money.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? But she was willing to put it towards what was right, because we need to find justice. We need to make things take place.
Absolutely.
You know? But yeah, so a lot of people, I think it was just more so that, well, he's done joking. He always think he's doing something, because what it is that I do so many different things and stuff, and I realize that I step on a lot of people's toes. Some people love me, some people hate me, and so and some people hate me just because of the fact that I do so much. Mm-hmm. Because I'm sorry that y'all can't do but one thing.
Okay, though.
Okay. You see what I'm saying? But God has just blessed me this way and stuff. And so some people think that I'm arrogant, and some people think that I'm, so I've had so many different, but I'm not. I just do what I do. I'm just a private person. And when people don't know you, they get to try, they start creating, this negative
narratives about you
and so forth, And I'm just a person that gets up in the morning, and when I wake up, I think about something and I make it happen.
Right. So now with let's kind of move a little forward. So now that we got the conviction, so they found old boy guilty. I don't really like saying his name too much, but they found old boy guilty. Everybody seems to feel a relief and feel like we won. My opinion, I don't think that we won. Even though it's good that he did get convicted. Of course, he hasn't been sentenced yet. We'll see how that goes.
Right.
But, everybody feels like we won. How do you feel about it now he's been convicted? Do you think that's a win for us, or do you feel like this was just a scratch on the surface and there's still tons of work to do?
There's still so much more work to do. This case just happened to be at a pivoting time, and the way that it happened, the pandemic, everything kind of just fell. It happened at the right time,
Right.
And I don't mean it in a negative way. I mean, it's just the right time, how life's balance was basically, and people were more in tune to something, because people had no choice. Because before, if it wasn't in pandemic and things like that, people would have been out moving around. They wouldn't have been sitting at home watching on TV all the time. It wouldn't have had a chance to fester inside their heads the same.
Absolutely.
See, and so it kind of created, and it made this thing. It's so big, in which, like I say, because you got to think about since this conviction. I mean, right after that, within the next 2 weeks, there was 6 or 7 black people that got killed by the police after that.
Right. Actually, and especially the one that happened, I think, right when they was reading the verdict, they said something else
just happened. Right.
You
see what I'm saying? So it's not like as if it stopped. I mean, it's not stopping this, That was just one. So we don't want to get comfortable, and think that now we've won, because we haven't won. No, his family won.
Right.
But we still got to deal with the everydays that still go on.
That's true.
We as a community still have to look at the picture bigger than that. And like I say, I think it's people get involved when it seems like it's something that it's not going to take a lot of effort. And so it didn't take a lot of effort for people to, George Floyd.
Right.
See, it didn't take a lot of effort for that,
Right.
But it takes effort to get down in the grassroots of trying to make change. And see, if people use that same energy that they were using, during the George Floyd protest to try to make change, just think how far we would go.
Right, especially if you're working in your own town.
Right.
Out of all 50-something states we got, if everybody's applying that same pressure, in their hometown for their own,
For their own, right.
Yeah.
And that's where we win that's how we, really succeed overall,
Right.
One victory over here, I mean, and I appreciate it, and but like I said, I watched none of the trial or anything else, because my victory is Deontae.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Because before there was George Floyd, before there was Trayvon, it was Deontae.
Deontae Keller, absolutely.
Right. You see what I'm saying? And so I understand what the real picture is,
Right. Right.
So I can't get away from that, Like I say, Kendra's dad was my bass player, Kenny James, my partner,
right?
And so we've been playing music together since high school, watched in high school and stuff, So I mean, and Gerard Perez's family, I mean, those my best friend, Pancho and them. I mean, so and Lynetta's son, Bumper,
right.
That was, I grew up to Hammocks. We, Byron, we boxed together at Knott Street.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So we, so I have connections with all of these people that have lost these loved ones as well. well too. So it's not as if that's just somebody else. See, so I don't know George Floyd.
Right.
You know?
Right. Rest in peace to him. But yeah, it doesn't.
I don't know you.
Right. We got people right here in the city that we do know that's been affected by police, been murdered by the police, and even dealt with some police brutality. And, we don't scream for them as much as we scream for somebody we don't know.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So I kind of want to change the conversation a little bit and kind of talk about black on black crime, because a lot of people try to use that towards us now. Like, hey, you're talking about police brutality on black Americans, but what about them with black on black crime? In our city, a lot of gang violence has skyrocketed. Actually, you've seen it kind of all over the country. Right. A lot of violence, period. But I want to kind of just stick in the gang aspect of things. But you see a lot of gang violence that arise. We see a lot of our brothers killing each other. Kind of want to get your opinion and your voice on that.
It's really interesting how it has evolved now into such a serious matter, because we are dealing with some young people, that are kind of put behind the 8 ball in a sense, because like I say, there's retaliations, there's family members that have been involved in situations prior to, there's people that are coming out of jail for situations, for situations that never let things go. I mean, there's so many different factors that are, just fueling this fire basically right now. And the problem is that there's no way to pinpoint it because of the fact that nobody talks to each other anymore.
True.
You see, and stuff. And so it's kind of like, how do we get a grip on this? Because back in the days when the first gang shooting, Ray Winston, basically,
I remember that.
I worked for I was on a youth gang. They put together the youth gang outreach program, in which I was a part of myself, JW Friday and stuff, and we had an office out in the villa. And so when there were situations when people were having problems, they had somebody that they can come to. They can come over to the office and just kind of talk about it.
Right.
They were gang members and so forth. It didn't matter. And we would go out to their houses and talk to them, like, what's going on with you? Is there some underlying something going on that we need to figure out how to get by this certain point, because if nobody talks to them about the situation and tries to help them get through it, then they decide to make it, on their own, whatever they create in their head, and whatever they create in their head could be from smoking a whole bunch of weed and drinking and so forth, and then all of a sudden their thoughts change. It's like, oh, that motherfucker, before you know it, a good situation is turned bad, and you can be somebody that's even in the room with you. That's how a lot of things happen as well too, and because a lot of people know each other, through the process, and people have shot people in the same room with them because they started drinking and smoking and so forth, and then all of a sudden something triggered, or somebody didn't respond right to what somebody else said, and just because your friend ain't my friend don't have to be your friend, you see. So if you talk about somebody that's good to you, but you don't like them, see, that's like you talking about, why you bring that motherfucker's information around me? You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying? That's what starts that triangle, basically. And so it's so easy for things to be triggered now, and then there's no place for people, there's no real outlets.
Right. So like you said, they had the program where they can reach out to you guys. I know they got like gang task force, but I don't think they really make a difference. But what do you think can help, with these young brothers nowadays? Because like even right now, you listen to the music that they have now. In their music, they talk about killing the opposition, and we killing ops, and we smoking on the ops, and it's real disrespectful. Somebody die, it gets very disrespectful, and you see a lot more of them kind of attacking each other behind stuff like that. Because when you hear it in the music, you play it out in real life, right? So you see this a lot, and so you see a lot of our rappers being killed off. Same in, like I say, in our city with the gangs, you see that that trickle down there. What do you think can? I don't even know how to say this. Like, what do you think can bridge them to get, like, because you got the OGs, but some of them do stuff, but some don't. You see a lot of people talking online on Facebook and Twitter and different things, but we really not seeing nobody reaching out to them, getting hands on and really getting with the youth. Like, hey, we got to find something different.
Well, like I say, going back to the music that they listened to, and that's what started the whole gang situation. Because remember, excuse me, originally when you had Curtis Blow and these all the breaks and everything else, and so the only battles, because like I said, from being a promoter in the '80s, would be the battles at the throwdowns where they would be break dancing and stuff like that. So that's what the battles were, was, you know. So the battles weren't about who did something to somebody, you know, and it didn't have nothing to do with no guns or anything, you know. But they, you know, and so then all of a sudden, because the music was enjoyable, so people, you know, wanted to do something that felt enjoyable. And all of a sudden the music started shifting. You see, and then all of a sudden it started talking about shooting somebody, you know. Or this bitch over here, or this, you know, and then all of a sudden, you know, oh yeah, that's what, you know, and then before you know it, it just started creating this whole nother genre of, you know, of people, in a sense, because they were led by the music in which they fell into. And so then initially when it happened, it wasn't a marketable thing, you see, and so it kind of flatlined for a little bit. But then what happened was that it was started to be an underground, and the industry was losing money. So the major industries decide, well, hey, they're gonna buy it anyway. Let us sell it. So all of a sudden they made that music mainstream. You see, and so once it went mainstream, it affected all of those people that never heard it, because if you weren't a part of the underground scene, you wouldn't hear that music.
True.
You see, but once you got there, all of a sudden it's like, and oh wow, I could listen to it, you know. And then all of a sudden it's playing on all the major radio stations, but it's just because they bleeped the word out and so forth. You already because everything else was already in your head already. Because you done already heard it, because somebody was playing the version. You see what I'm saying? And so once that all of a sudden you just like, oh shit, that motherfucker, man, he's singing down. Oh, 40 over here, got a Hennessy here. You see what I'm saying? So they was basically telling you what to buy, what to wear, how to dress, how to look, because this was cool. You see, so if mainstream is saying this, we can do this. Then all of a sudden, you got the little white boys and everybody else doing it, you know? And then they want to be gangsters.
They showed
You see when they want to twist their head to the side. You see what I'm saying? 'Cause remember when this, you know, that was the first thing. You had to have your head twisted to the side and stuff like that, you know? And so, you know, but what it did, it was an irreversible process that took place. And this is what's the results of it.
And so I think we got to hold ourselves accountable, man, in our own communities as well. Like, you know, I do agree with you. The music plays a big part to me, because, you know, art imitates life. Our life imitates art, I should say. So, you know, and we see that a lot. Now, also, when I was coming up, you had a lot of things in play. Like we had, you know, summer programs we could work. You know, we had, of course, SCI. When I was coming up, you know, there was all types of after school programs, stuff to keep us out the streets, whether it was after school or during breaks or even in summertime. We had a lot of things in play, and I don't see a lot of that now. A lot of those programs are gone. And you know, why do you think that they took those programs out of our schools and out of our communities in the first place?
Reallocation of funds. That was the bottom line. What do we want? What's the most priorities? Basically, where do we want to put our money at? Who do we want to spend it with? You see, where do the dollars go? What schools do the dollars go to? You know, what programs will the dollars go to? Is it going to one that's going to help people, or is it going to want? Because you got to remember, if everybody gets help, nobody needs help. So somebody loses their job. So every time things get better, somebody loses their job. So we got to remember that as well too. So there's certain things in the world that just kind of have to keep going. And there are those that are going to keep it going that way, because that's what funnels things in the world.
Yeah, it's just sad, because a lot of those programs can help a lot of these youth, man, make better decisions and choices in life, you know.
But you got you got to look at it like this as well too. You got to remember, some of the kids now are products of the parents that were some of the people that started it.
That's true too. It's generational.
It's generational. So it's kind of something that they were, but even though their mom or dad wasn't that way, you see, it's just once that person picked it up when it first started, then all of a sudden they started having babies. Mm-hmm. And so now these babies are growing up in that atmosphere and so forth.
Right.
And so, and so if they're hearing it, if they still, that's why, and there's still some, some people that are out there in their 50s that are still doing the same thing and thinking that same frame of mind, and so forth, and still pushing that same thought. And so they make it seem like it's all right. So they grandbabies are seeing the same thing. And so if grandma doing it, mm-hmm. Why can't that be? Yeah. Granddaddy doing it, mm-hmm. Why not?
Everybody wearing the same color from grandma on down.
Grandma on down, right. They dress, they talking bad, they cussing and so forth. So every time I cuss, they don't say nothing about it. So I can keep cussing it, I don't have to go to school. I can go when I want to, know. I can, so then that creates that attitude. And then because people that do those kind of things seem to magnetize themselves together mm-hmm. and so forth. So if you find 3 or 4 people that have got that same frame of mind, you put them together, you just created a little mob of its own.
True.
In a sense.
So in your opinion, what do you think that we can do to help our community just here in Portland with this gang violence?
The problem is that we don't have a community. A community is something that is a formula we're too spread out now.
Right.
To, to be effective as we could be, because nobody's listening to the same thing. Because back in the days when we had cable, when cable was the only radio station on, you had 2 hours of radio every day, of soul radio. And it was the only time that you can catch it. And so when it came on, everybody tuned into the same thing.
Right.
So the funnel fed out to all the ears. You see what I'm saying? So for that 2 hours a day, everybody heard the same information.
Got the same
information. They got the same. You see, but now we don't hear the same thing. Mm-hmm. See, you on YouTube, you on this, you on that, you on this. Everybody is Spotify. Everybody's somewhere else.
Right.
So we're not connecting together. And so even though Facebook, people be on Facebook. Yeah, I got 3,000 friends on Facebook. I don't even know how they even got to be friends and stuff because I don't even accept them and so forth. But I don't know these people.
Right.
You see, and I don't know if they even read anything that I do anyway. So just because I got the numbers, that don't make them, that I'm getting information to them.
True.
5 or 6 people, because if you look at some people's pages and so forth, you may see one like.
That's true. That's true.
They got one like, but they still be pushing for it.
They still be pushing. You ain't lying.
You see what I'm saying? Lying. So we don't, and that's where the problem is right there. Without a source of getting information to everybody, we can't communicate as a community anymore. And so I don't really know what it's going to take. I mean, really, it's gonna take a new generation to be led to create, and an old has to die out. Just as what happened when this came.
True.
The old had to die out for this new to come and take its place. You see, because otherwise we would still be doing what we were doing.
Right.
You see, and so now there has to be a new that comes through, and it could be the era of computers, and the protest could make it a whole different thing, because it could, so whatever it is, it's going to have to make itself kind of happen right now.
And that makes sense. Every social movement births something new.
Right.
Anything that happens, just anything significant that happens in the country or in the world, it always births something new. So we're gonna see, but I just hope that we figure it out, because it's sad, man. I know we go against the police so hard, but we also got to look into our own backyard too.
Man, can I tell you a story? Can I tell you a history story? Basically, so, and it's kind of interesting because I was sharing this with somebody one day, because we talk about the gangs and how bad people are and how they fight, and do crazy things and so far. The kids, if older folks would say the kids nowadays. But back in the days, there used to be these parties when I mentioned Williams and Emerson. Mm-hmm. These parties on Williams and Emerson, I mean, it was in this fourplex. Fourplex is still there. Stuff. But when these parties went on, everybody came. And it was in the fourplex, but in one unit, but everybody would be outside. There would be so many people there. And that's what I'm saying, because people knew that the party on Williams Emerson, that was the key. That was, the streets would be blocked. People couldn't even come through. I mean, it was so crazy.
That's wild.
So, but then there would be fights and so forth, a little gunplay. Somebody might shoot a shot up in the air or something like that. But then it got to the point where when white people came down the street, they would actually stop the cars and started beating the white people up. I mean, so there was, so that's why when I look at people always trying to blame young people now, no, this ain't just happened.
Right.
It didn't just start. Basically, they were doing it back then. I seen a situation where it was so bad where this white lady they ended up tearing all her clothes off. She was butt naked. The sad part was that she was pregnant. They had beat her husband up. I mean, because they come up Williams Avenue, just imagine when you come up the street, and all of a sudden you get to this street where you can't get through.
Right.
Because people were just swarming the streets and so forth. But it got to be where, because violence was going on then as well too, because it's something, that's been something that's been going on since time.
Right.
But this lady, and I remember her running, and she ran down Sumner Street, and around the corner there was this apartment complex right there on Vancouver and Sumner on the corner there. She ran there, and there used to be a swimming pool on the front, and she went in because I actually went and followed her, because I was concerned, because it got too bad now. It's like, because I knew some of the people that was doing this stuff.
Right.
And so she knocked on this door, and this lady let her in the apartment and stuff, but they had just beat her husband down, and stuff. But and I remember back in the days when I was saying, things at the Coliseum and so forth, we would come out from the Coliseum and be walking down the street. They would just jump on white people, just like, because there was always a group of bad people, no matter where you went, but they were, so you would, in a sense, consider that a gang because they were,
there was a group.
That was a group that just, and that's kind of how, but they just weren't carrying guns.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And they weren't beating up each other, but they were doing it to white people.
Right.
So it's kind of the same thing in a sense. It was because it's the mentality of who's doing the crime itself. Who's, it's just that if we do it to each other, that means it's just the two of us, but it's the matter of who's doing it.
Right.
It's not who's receiving it, it's who's doing it. So, and that's what Crips and Bloods, who's doing it.
That's crazy, man. Yeah. It's just wild, man. I remember, like, say you brought up Ray Ray, man. I remember that happened when I was a kid, man. I remember that my mom used to braid his hair, so it's crazy, man. But, like I said, I pray over the city, man. I know, the violence here is crazy right now. I hope these brothers wake up. A lot of people say maybe some of the older gang members who may have went to jail and then now their mentality has changed, or they lived long enough to, change their mentality, should be reaching out. But, I think...
well, there are some groups, like... Mo and there's a few people and so forth that are, they're and Roy and some people that are actually just been doing it, but it's just so big and they can only, like say, if you can't really make contact with them until after the fact.
True.
You see, because there's so many new things and new people that are coming, because when they show people's pictures on TV, I'd be like, I wonder how many people even know him.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And even knew that he was, this way, and stuff. And so that's the thing. So if you don't know about him until after the fact, because there's no underground, there's no real connection stuff anymore.
True.
So until we figure out a way to connect back again, in which, like I say, but it may not happen because people have too much freedom now to do things in different ways. So if it don't work over here, you can do it over here. Or if you don't like listen to this radio station, you listen to this one over here. If you don't like to listen to this podcast, you listen to this one over here.
Right.
What makes yours any different than anybody else's now? I can do it too. It's like when my son was murdered by the police, the same reporter, she was that from the Oregonian, she was a writer, and she's always wrote negative stories about all the police murders and so forth, because she was pretty much, I believe, under the police, payroll in a sense, because from McKendree, every story that she wrote is always negative. And even recently, you know, she was writing some negative stuff about Deontae and stuff, you know, when it was, you know, but then I turned it around on her because see, then all of a sudden I put her on Facebook.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And I told her, so I blasted her, you see. And then as one of my statements is that, see, now I have the power of the pen. But at that time, it was limited.
Right,
see,
right.
What's
on social media?
Right. Yeah. So the only thing that you heard, the only news that you got was whatever they fed you. You see, so, you know, and so if they want to keep giving you negative things, they're going to keep giving you negative things. If they want to make it seem like only negative things are going on, they're going to keep on giving you that. So if good news is bad news to them sometimes because it's not interesting news.
Right.
You know, because they want news that people are going to listen to and want to, you know, and, you know, so this is a good story. This is a good story. This is a good story. But, you know, it's a bad story. It's a negative story.
Right,
But your story is the only one that they're going to hear.
Right. They want to control the narrative. They want to tell it the way they want to tell it.
Right.
And definitely.
That's why when I was on Northeast Spectrum, they was really, you know, because I was on Northeast Spectrum during the time when Deontae was murdered and stuff.
I remember that. I remember Northeast Spectrum.
Northeast Spectrum it was live television.
Yeah.
See, all of a sudden I became a threat. And see, that's really why Northeast Spectrum went off the air, because of the fact that they tried to fire me. I had a meeting with the president. He told me that I couldn't talk about Deontae anymore because of the fact that the city said that they was going to pull their purse strings and stuff if you know, and so forth. It was a big thing. You know, that's a whole nother story. I mean, a lot of people don't really know the shit that I've been through. You know. And stuff, so you know, and then they even hired somebody to come in and fire me and stuff, and it was a heck. But then everything they did didn't work, so they ended up basically taking the show off the air. And none of the other hosts really know why. And I never told them the story because of the fact that it was just something I was going through. So I used to bringing y'all into, you know, to something, because half of y'all was kind of iffy anyway in a sense of, you know, but. So, you know, but it's real. But and then even at the same time, see, I worked for the city too. You know, because I worked from city from 1974 into, you know, basically I got rehired again the same day that I had my deposition with the city attorneys with Deontae back in and stuff. And so it was kind of interesting. But I got fired from that. I hired a brother to come in to fire me from, you know, brought him back to Mac Dishman and stuff. I mean, so. There's a way that, you know, and like I say, from some of the things that happen to us in life, we can be angry. And see, in my life, I could be real angry. Because like I say, because when Deontae was murdered, I lost 2 sons. Right. You know, because that's my other son, Marcus, he developed lupus from the stress. You know, so that one bullet killed 2. And that's going to be in my book, One Bullet Kills 2. Right. You know, and stuff. So I can be an angry man. I can be I can be a gangster because I know how to be a gangster. Right. But see, I can control my, you know, because with the faith and patience, I don't take the moment as the situation. And so going back to gangs and so forth, the moment is their life. So they have to react to that moment because of manhood, of pride, going back to what we was talking about again, and so forth. So if somebody you can't buck your chest out at me like this right here. Right. You can't even walk by me and do this right here, you know, because you what you doing? You bucking on me? Right. You see what I'm saying? So pride will get you back, you know, and so that's the thing. So how do you get past that? And so when it goes back to gangs, it's something they're going to have to learn. They're going to have to learn and wake up within themselves and say, damn, why am I doing this? Why am I responding to somebody else? Because like I say, it's the individual that does it. If you respond to it, you know, but if you don't respond to something, you won't do it.
That's true. You know, that's true, man. But like I said, hopefully, man, you know, game's been around for a long time, man. A long time. I don't see him going nowhere. Before it was Crips and Bloods, it was called something else. So, you know,
and you go back into the 40s and 50s and so forth. Gang was, you know, it was bootlegging, you know, bootlegging, you know, and so you know, so it's been something that's just been a part of life. Right. So, but
and now it seems like it's always birthed from the environment of where poverty is heavily brewing it. Yeah, definitely. So, you know, it seems like that's where you would put the focus is to try to fix that problem, you know. But, you know, who knows, man. I just, you know, all we could do is pray about it.
Just pray about it. There's hope, like I said, there's enough brothers out there that's still willing to keep a good voice out there and try to say positive things. Because the thing is that if you keep saying positive things, sooner or later somebody's going to hear you. And if it doesn't affect you right now, it may affect you down the road. The key is that it does affect you, though.
That's a fact.
They wasn't used to, you realize you on, so you can't be making all that noise that you know.
Right. That's a fact. That's a fact. That's crazy. That's the truth, man.
Yeah, so.
I ain't even thought about it like that though, but that's crazy. Yep, they seeing it all now.
They seeing it all now. Your kids is actually seeing it all now, and people they're showing their frustrations. They're showing their and like I say, because people are more frustrated now from especially when they really had to go stay in.
Right.
They wasn't used to that. It was like, I'm used to being away from you sometime. I'm used to being able to go somewhere. I'm used to being able to go to my friend's house and go and and vent over here and so forth. Now I can't even go vent. I can't even get on the phone and talk to her about it because of the fact that you right here and shit, you all up under me and shit.
I get no break.
I got no break.
No break.
And the kids over here like, God damn, if I go outside and when I walk back in, you're going to be like, where you been? How come you going outside? What you going outside? Why you take your phone outside?
Right.
You see what I'm saying? Right. Damn.
All of the above.
Why can't I, man, you be missing your girlfriend's house and so forth. And it's the same thing for men as well, too.
Same thing.
Because a man is used to kind of just, doing his thing and kind of kicking back and sometimes just getting out and, and I was like, I can't go nowhere. It's like all of a sudden that attitude come and then she said the wrong thing. It was like, damn, I'm just tired of just looking there. And all of a sudden he just it's like, man, so was my homie. Can't go this house. Can't go kick it, man. It's like, damn, man, this bitch make me sick.
You leave 15, 20 minutes. It's a problem.
It's a problem, right? Yeah, it's like,
that's too long.
Yeah,
what you gonna do?
What you do? Like, whose house you go? It's a COVID time and so forth.
It's COVID. Why you don't know what they doing over there?
Right? Yeah. Now bring this shit over. Bring this shit back home and shit.
Right.
Oh yeah, it's a mess.
It's a different conversation now.
So yeah, so you gotta think now. What actually did this whole thing do to kids?
Right.
What did what mindset have kids changed to? Even when it comes to, because they were on the flow learning, communicating. Because some kids are getting hard for them to socialize again.
That's true.
Because that year off and plus, it's kind of tighten them up.
Well, that's what we're gonna see in the future. Because those are the kids that we're gonna see. How did this affect?
How did this affect them?
How did it affect us? Because now they got it when they was young, so now they growing up with this, and it's going to affect how they make decisions, and that's and of course the kids are the future, right? So we're gonna see. We definitely gonna see.
To have to be stuck in the house, to have to wear a mask, to have to stuff, and that's something new. Last time we had to wear a mask was when Mount St. Helens blew, and that was just because to make sure that you can breathe. Otherwise, you might die. And so people, you knew that you would, you knew it then.
Right.
And you put a mask on, but it's hard now because you have to just keep it on for so long.
Right. And it's an everyday thing. Anytime you leave the house,
now you got to wear a mask and stuff. And so, so we're in a whole different time. So these kids now are seeing something totally different, and then that we would, as adults don't quite understand. So you can imagine in their head, they like, this is something new. But like say, this is going to change the way that they see things. They're going to think smarter about things. They're going to be, because I know a lot of little kids is kind of like probably figuring out, well, how come I can't get a shot?
Right.
I hear about it on the news and so forth. And now it's going down to the age of 12 and stuff,
Right. That's absolutely
And so these little kids probably want to get a shot because they done seen so many people die.
My older brother got his sister, my auntie, my mother, everybody. I ain't getting it.
Right. Then there could be a kid that got a parent that don't want to get it, and then they like, Mom, how come you don't want to get a shot?
Right.
Boy, shut up.
Right.
Ain't none of your damn business.
Ain't none of your business.
Right.
Or on the flip side of that, I tell you why, because I have fear of this and that third. So now you're growing up with fear of vaccines. And like,
so now you just created them. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right. So what you got going on now, man? I know you stay busy. I know you stay in the community. I know you still doing your music. You're a jack of all trades, man. So what you got going on?
Well, actually, I've been kind of blessed, actually. As a service provider, I got into the church. I didn't, even though, like I said, I'm being real, so some of the words coming out of my mouth, they real, that's, because that's just who I am and so forth, But I got in church because I had to get back focused into a lot of ways. But I grew up in the church as well, too, originally. Right. And so since then, a couple of years ago, I ended up really actually getting blessed with, remodeling the church. Me and the pastor, the bishop we met, and stuff. He's a friend of mine anyway. And then I had these skills, and it was an old church. And it's like, hey, you want to do this for me? I was like, sure,
Right.
And then all of a sudden he realized I can do this. Now we done moved the church to a mega church in the sense of as far as we got 3 cameras set up, all the newest stuff, online. Just put a jumbo screen behind it, So I basically totally remodeled the ticket from 1944 because it still had its old wood panel, the pews in there and everything else, to now up model up to 2020 plus, with the jumbotron screen. We've got, in the back that we can change with, 17 panel with 18 panels basically put together. It's 11 and a half feet wide, 6.5 feet tall,
Crazy.
And so, but then that got me to doing other little jobs and so forth. So it kind of blessed me as a service provider. So financially during the pandemic, I've been making more money in a sense of just being free to do, because people know who I am.
Right.
And so they trust me to come to their house to do things, and I do good work for whatever I do.
Right.
And so it's kind of just filled the void, because I ain't had a chance to really play no music, and I closed my man cave down.
Okay,
basically.
man cave, yeah. I forgot I was going to talk about that. Yeah,
I had the man cave for all those years and stuff, and I had a lot of people that didn't realize that I had a sewage flood in there and stuff. So what happened was a couple of years ago we had a bad storm, and there was a sewage drain that was capped, and somehow the pressure was so bad it backed up that it popped the cap off, and I had 8 inches of sewage that came up through the whole 3,000 square feet of space, all the way through. So everything that was on the floor, goddamn, had sewer rats came out. It was, it was amazing. They had to do a major cleanup. Had to cut the walls, all the sheetrock was damaged because it had happened on a Wednesday. They had the storm, and didn't realize it until Monday when the owner of the building had came in, and she smelled this stint because the water had still, because there's only one, one small drain for all this water to go out. And so I hadn't been back to the studio, for that duration of time to the bank, So when it basically finally subsided, then all of a sudden that smell came because the carpet, from the carpet and everything else down there. And so, and it was a warm day. And so when she opened the door up to come into
she got smacked with something.
She like, right, yeah. And then she opened up, she opened my door and went downstairs, and she called me, and she's like, Joe, you need to get over here now. You know? And got over there, and all it was just like thick mud, goop from the sewers, like I say, sewer rats, everything. But anything that was on the floor, my drum, like I said, I had 2 drum sets, all the drum. I lost a lot of old memorabilia because anything that was any boxes that was on, anything that was on the floor got damaged.
Yeah, it's done.
It was a done deal and stuff. And then so after I cut the walls, and because I had to take all the shit, they had probably about 8 inches in some spots where the water had built up. And all behind in the sheetrock, it was all molded and stuff as well too. So it was but it was time because I was kind of getting tired of it because I need to start doing something else. And God had already kept saying, okay, you slow down, but you're trying to do something else. But I guess I need to put a storm in front of you to make you just to move, And so that's what he did. He put a storm in front of me basically, and I closed, I said, I'm just gonna close it down. I ain't gonna worry about it and just do something different. I was really used to it because I got comfortable with it. It was a good thing, but it was I used it. It was a good community spot in a sense, but then it wasn't really me because I was doing, I was throwing a lot of parties and stuff, and I really was trying to get away from that, and selling liquor and all that stuff over there. So I was I was kind of tired, I didn't feel like hanging out, because people want to rent it, and it's like, okay, now if you rent it now, I got to stay up until you done, and all that and stuff, and and they won't be there till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and stuff, and I'm like, I don't feel like I'm tired of doing that, So God said, okay, well, you need that extra boost, well, bam. And so, but ever since then, I've been so blessed, and everything has been so good since then. So I've just been staying focused and and doing Joe Bean right now. Can't wait to play my music again. But then he knew too that I needed to be available because of this situation. Because like I said, when you have faith and patience, and see the same thing that
I see that. Okay,
I got that after Deontae. more than faith and patience, because I'll find justice for you, you know.
Right,
so y'all
I like
see
that.
This is on my tattoo on my arm as well too.
That's
I've always
dope.
had this over 25 years and stuff. So so now it's time, it's manifesting. So God needed me to have a clear head,
Right.
to, you know, because he knew that this situation was going to come about, you know, but I had to have the faith and patience to just rest on whatever he said. He's like, say, I'm going to give you this storm. I'm kicking you out. You know, I don't know, you know, I was saying, well, you must know what's next for me. So let me just clear my head and that's what I did. And so now I'm prepared. That's why we went to the March on Washington, did all those other things and stuff, because he led me to get away from certain things, because I had, you can't, like say, just like friends, you got to sometimes leave them because you can only keep so many. So forth. And it's just like thoughts and everything else. You can only keep so many bad thoughts and so forth before you have to move, if you're trying to move on.
That's true.
Otherwise you stay stuck.
That's true. Well, Unc, man, I want to say I'm glad you came on the show, man. I was looking forward to this episode, man, and we're definitely going to have you back. We got more to talk about, man.
So much more to
talk about. But you got any social media links or websites you want to plug today?
Yeah, like I say, I want to plug Deontae's site. You know, if you want to see the untold story of Deontae J. Keller, go to DeontaeJ.com, DeontaeJKeller.com. That's DeontaeJ Keller, KELLER.com. Or if you want to see the video before there was Trayvon, it's a national video. You can go to YouTube, just punch in before there was Trayvon. It's so simple. And when you see this video, when you hear this video, we got Mike Crenshaw and Tariq and so forth. There's some good people that's on here. Kendra James, his father, is actually playing the bass in the song as well too. Dope. Yeah, so he's, you know, and then when they show her picture, when I mentioned her name and so forth, there's a picture of her and him together as well too.
Nice. You know,
so it's well put together and stuff. And so I want you to share it as well too, if you like it, you know. And like I said, if you can hit me on Facebook, Jobin Keller, you know, so hey, I'm your friend. I'm always going to be here. And man, nephew, we got so much more to talk about.
We definitely do. We definitely do.
We just hit the surface.
Always hit the surface, but we definitely hang you back, man, because we got a lot of stuff to talk about. But listen, if you're listening now, go ahead and subscribe on the YouTube, like and comment, share, please. You know how we do it. We'll be back with another episode. I have told y'all I'm loading the clip up, man. I'm shooting out these episodes, man, left and right. But I appreciate you guys supporting. Keep supporting, and we're going to keep this thing moving. It's your boy DJ Pryce Miyagi. Tell a friend to tell a friend, and let's go.